So I'll call the meeting to order for an invitation.
Father God in heaven, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for this group of people, this body of influencers, God. That's what they are. And we pray that you give them wisdom, we pray that you give them peace. We pray that you give them insight as they lead this community, our community, into the future. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There are changes to the agenda.
We need to add an executive session for non-elected personnel. Approve the agenda as amended. Second.
Moved by Commissioner Jackson, second by Commissioner Wentz to approve the agenda as amended. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to public comments. This is a time where citizens are encouraged to speak publicly. Request that you come to the podium, state your name and address. Please speak respectfully. Limit your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing none? No one online? Moving on to our action agenda, minutes of the July 1st and July 3rd, 2024 meeting.
I move to approve the minutes of July 1st and July 3rd, 2024 meeting. Second.
Moved by Commissioner Wentz, second by Commissioner Hash to approve the minutes of July 1st, July 3rd, 2024 meetings. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to appropriation ordinance 13.
I had a question. I noticed that we did a lot of towing, paid a lot of towing bills to Bedrock. Some of them were 250 and some of them were 125.
That might be after hours. Or maybe depending on how big the vehicle is too, I don't know. It's either after hours or larger, because they're 125 if it's a standard vehicle on a weekday. During this.
There seemed to be quite a number of them that were higher. That's fine.
I think when police tows after hours, a lot of times, and we also towed larger. Bigger. They were the
250s.
police department.
Would they be,
Free licenses.
could they have billed for 2 different vehicles
That's-
and 1 invoice?
I wondered if it was two different
Oh,
cars at
that's
once.
possible. They all would have had their separate invoice, but I guess I don't know how it is put into. It was one invoice number, they're usually just one.
1 car per invoice. Unless it, would they do for 2 cars in the same household?
It usually, it's after hours and, large trucks are more expensive to tow. We pay more for, especially after hours, I would think, because I know it's more. I can't remember the rates offhand.
We can look at that, get the details and follow.
I'm just curious why some of them were double the price. And if it's after hours, why would we tow them after hours?
That could be a DUI.
DUIs, law enforcement, it's gonna be those.
That type
Yeah,
of thing.
and they
So
will
that
charge
could be-
considerably more.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's probably what it is.
I have to approve the appropriation ordinance number 13.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Hutchinson, second by Commissioner Wentz to approve appropriation ordinance 13. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to resolution 2024-2175, Community Facilities Grant Agreement for USDA.
As you will recall, in 2022, we were awarded the grant for the fire truck. And this was the first time that we had to submit to USDA after our payment, our recent payment for the down payment. And they found a different grant administrator is in place now. They found that, we do not have this signed. So basically, it's just buttoning up something so we can get our money. It's the grant agreement, and the resolution is what we would need to pass to authorize you to sign the agreement that we already reviewed. But we didn't have the signed agreement, or at least she didn't have it on file, so. Like I said, it was a new person taking it over at NCRPC, so. Move to approve resolution 2024-2175.
Second,
Moved by Commissioner Hutchinson, second by Commissioner Hash to approve resolution 2024-2175. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Managers report.
Special to report tonight, but happy to answer any questions.
Staff reports.
Scott word today that, our application for our surface preservation project has been selected, for funding as part of the KDOT state fiscal year 2026 city connecting link improvement program. So that's good news. The project that was selected was, replacing the poor concrete pavement on the main line of US 81, starting at 6th Street north to the city limits. That work doesn't include the viaduct wearing surface, but just up to the approach. So,
Us two and then beyond the approach.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep, to the city limits.
I was gonna update you guys real quick on the eminent domain stuff. So working with the appraisers to get them to get the values or their appraised value to me. I have essentially 1.5. One of the appraisers is done with theirs. Another one I'm trying to hunt down to get it finished. And the third one wanted a little bit of additional information that I'm gonna provide to her this week. The plan at this point in time, because we have to publicize for a week prior to the hearing. So my goal is not, we're missing it for next week, but I'll publicize next week and we'll have it the following Wednesday, which would, there won't be a city council meeting or anything. So we'll just open up the building and we'll sit here by ourselves for about 10 or 15 minutes and then we'll go home. And then I'll get the appropriate paperwork filed and we'll be transferring it. So I just kind of been chasing appraisers around trying to get that. Everybody's busy, so just trying to get them to get the value so it's average stuff. Any questions? It's super exciting stuff. So,
Good.
okay, thanks.
Other staff reports?
I'll just say that those,
Yeah,
go ahead. You looked it up, that those are both after hours fees. 125 for after hours.
One was a motorcycle, so you can't go off the size.
Other staff reports? Commissioner comments? Saving it all for budget discussion. At this point, I would entertain a motion to adjourn into executive or move, we recess into executive session.
I move the city commission recess into executive session to discuss employment personnel issues pursuant to the non-elected personnel matter exception KSA 754319 B1 with Amy Lang and Justin Farrell in attendance and to reconvene in the city commission chamber at 5:48.
What did we say, 5:50?
5:50.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Jackson, second by Commissioner Hutchinson, the city commission recess into executive session to discuss employment personnel issues pursuant to non-elected personnel matter exception KSA 754319 B1 with Amy Lang and Justin Farrell in attendance. We can in the city commission chamber at 5:50 PM. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Yeah.
Where we all stand in the door, right?
You slept long.
No action was taken. This time I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Commissioner Hatch, seconded by Commissioner Jackson to adjourn the commission meeting. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Meeting is adjourned. Do that. Breathe, dive right in.
I put on your table, the
Oh,
first
we need to
thing.
call the budget meeting to order
Oh,
then.
should be.
The budget meeting is now called to order. Power vested in me. Okay, go for it.
The state budget form group, if you want, I put a colorful sticker paper behind it so you could separate your two if you wanted to and put it behind the state budget form tab like in front. So copy two, this is copy two, is now the right one. This in there is no longer, yeah, and I updated it with basically the changes, putting in the 4.1% COLA into a whole line, so it's in the detail, not in the chunk. The same with the health insurance savings that we discussed, option 2, and putting reserves on them. So all that, and adding the mill to the current bill rate and not the R&R. So all of that has been adjusted into that new one.
This all goes in front of the old,
Yes.
okay. Thank you, sorry.
And then the green ones. You want to add that under utility fund info tab, if you just want to make that the first one, it replaces the white one that's. It replaces the white one that's in front. And it's just because on there I had the chunk of salaries, 4.1% increase. And it didn't have the savings in it, so now it's all that adjusted in there as well. That's the most up to date. We'll talk about that later. And then the CIP one, just add it to the CIP tab in the front. I guess on that, maybe we can. But okay, if we start with that, the CIP. We updated something since the meeting. So as you heard in the meeting, we dealt with CCLIP. So, just above the black line, I added $50,000 for the design for that, which is 100% the city cost, and that would happen in 2025. And then the construction is just below the line, city portion of 10%, $44,445, and that would happen in 2026. And so our unallocated funds have now been allocated, if we're all okay with that, and I took, if you'll recall, that was 46,000 some. And so the difference I took out of the lights at the Pee Wee Field and put that to the recreation donations to fund that portion, so that it all zeroed out at the end. So if that all looks okay, that's the only change I made to it, but that's just how we'll keep it for now, and that can always be changed as we go along the year, but then all the funds are allocated. We got that project. That worked out well.
And we're saying design again of what, sorry?
Above that black line, the surface preservation of the Highway 81, 6th Street north city limit. Oh, on the new one.
Gotcha. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. vote. The only items remaining, I believe, from Monday were the senior center, which you had that email from Amy, it's also in front of you. That explained all of that. Amy wanted to talk more about that, and then we also had the Brown grant. So those two things I think were all that remains from general fund stuff.
So I sent out an email today, after visiting with the, Richard Huber at the senior center, and then I know Stacy and Amber did some research with the accounting clerk as well, so the email just kind of summarizes the information that we found, if you haven't had a chance to take a look at it yet. That table in the middle is probably the easiest to read. So Cloud County assesses $1 million annually, it goes to the Cloud County Commission on Aging, which is staffed at the Concordia Senior Center. So they skim off some money off the top to pay for that office operations, and then that office is responsible for distributing the remainder out to all 5 senior centers in Cloud County: Clyde, Concordia, Jamestown, Glasgow, and Miltonville senior centers. Those are distributed on the base of total population. I did ask Richard if they looked at population over the age of 60, and he said that's usually estimated. So he'd rather go with actual population, so they do use the total population, not the estimated population over 60. So the percentages at the top of the table are the percentage allocation based on population. So if you take, for example, in 2024, 1 mil brought in $132,500. After they take off the office operations of $17,562, the remainder is distributed by percentage. If you add up the remainder percentages over on the right-hand column that's in bold, it says total senior center allocation, and that ends up being less. But if you add those two numbers together, in the 2024 line, if you add the 114,938 together and the 17,562, you get back up to that value of the middle of 132,500. Does that make sense? How to read that table? So you can see that the Concordia Senior Center in 2024 received an allocation from that mill of $84,640 for their general operations. Additionally, the Clyde County Commissioners have a discretionary allocation, so the senior center makes an appeal to them similarly to what they do to us. And that direct allocation has been $4,000. This last year, they only paid them $2,000, and this year have not paid them anything so far. We did not get the reason or the rationale why that was the case, but so far that's the case. He'd also asked about what they left on the table when they separated from the Flint Hills Area Agency on Aging. And it's kind of easier to talk about what they had and then what they left with. So when they were partnered with the Area Agency on Aging, that agency prepared all the menus using their recipes and coordinated some of the food service for them. So the senior center was required to purchase food from EBCO out of Emporia and use those menus, use those recipes, and then in exchange, the money that the senior center collected for meals, all but $1 of that went back to Flint Hills Area Agency on Aging to pay for that food. Our senior center kept $1. Now our senior center is buying locally, primarily from FNA, doing some business with Rods, Dewis, and Walmart, and they're keeping all of that revenue from their meal prices to pay for the food, and then whatever's left over, they can use that toward operations. Their additional income or their revenue sources are the mill levy the county assesses, the discretionary funds allocated by county commissioners and by the city commission, their meal income, and then any donations. Those are their main sources of revenue. So our previous allocation of the past several years of $10,000 has been to bring wages up from minimum wage up to a more competitive wage for them. So what they had raised those wages for was up to $10 from minimum wage. That's how they'd used them. The cook had previously been an employee of Flint Hills Area Agency on Aging. The current dollars per hour that they pay their cooks right now are advertised as $8 an hour. So if they'd stayed with the Area Agency on Aging, the cook would be paid $8 an hour, and then if the senior center wanted to contribute any more to raise those wages, they could. That's what they used our allocation for, to get those up to 10. The additional $10,000 they're asking us for this next year to bring that total allocation to 20 is to take those wages up to $12.50 an hour. What they found is that when they raised the wages up to $12.50, they were able to get a pool of applicants that had experience and that understood how to prepare food service for a large group of people who could actually do the job. They also have an office manager and a dishwasher that they previously had and needed to increase those wages. And then they also added an assistant cook, which they haven't had before. So the additional allocation of $10,000 would be to go to pop those wages from $10 to $12.50 an hour. And I went through and did a little bit of math, as you can see there at the top of the second page of that email. $10,000 divided by 12 months per year, divided by 20 days of operations per month, which is probably their maximum days of operations per month in general. together, when you add all those jobs together, that's 16 hours per day. So it comes out to offering about an additional $2.60 an hour of additional funding for them. They also have a custodian that is not included in this allocation because they had the custodian before. They need that custodian outside of food service anyway. And then Richard's role as director of the senior center is separate and is paid for by this commission of aging funds. Does that make sense? Okay, and he works about 3 days a week is what he said. So all that information is here. They did do an increase in their meal price from $4 to $5 after the separation for seniors. And then they decreased meal prices for non-seniors from $7 to $6. When I asked why they did that, they felt like the difference between 4 and 7 was too much of a difference between seniors and non-seniors just for having a birthday. And so they wanted to bring those closer together. But they did recognize that having a discounted price for seniors was beneficial and was the right thing to do. They did resume meal service on May 15th. So June has been their only first full month of service. Then you have the data in here. 794 total meals. Of those, 544 were Meals on Wheels. 160 were served in-house. So people were joining them at the table there at the senior center. And then 54 were served in to-go style. So people walked in, picked up their meal and walked out and took it home. Historically, they have an ebb and flow, so they historically see a decrease in meals served over the summer with people traveling. But they expect during fall that meal service will go back up. He did say that meatloaf was still the most popular meal, and so that is now on their menu once a week, in case you're interested. But that is the one that everybody really enjoys. And if you're interested in going to eat there, just call them the day before and they'll make sure that they have enough food allocated for everyone. Any questions?
So Richard is the director now.
Richard Hubert.
The Meals on Wheels customers don't pay for their meals, do they?
Yeah.
They do. So they pay the $5.
They're billed for it. And I think there's something that says if you're unable to pay, then disregard, but they expect that they will be paid for.
And I mean, they said that it's down typically in the summer. So is this normal for summer, these numbers?
I forgot to ask that question. I was there for an hour. We were
I
chatting.
think overall, they're down. They just, people are just haven't come back yet.
I think overall, that's true. Any other questions on? Do you need additional information to make a decision on how, whether or not you want to honor their increase or keep them the same? I think Amber said in the budget, the way it's written right now, we have their historical request of 10,000 in the budget, so the increase 10,000 they've asked for is not in there. And then you can choose if you want to do a different amount or whatever you want to do.
I'd really like to see the county do a little better. I don't know how you get that, but I mean, a fourth of these people are countywide, plus Concordia's county.
Well, and like Jamestown, I think they get meals from Concordia. I mean, they get Meals on Wheels from Concordia, Jamestown, at their senior center over there. There's somebody who takes them over there. I don't know. You know, when I think about it, I think, I'm just aware that they have just a devil of a time keeping a cook. And it's even harder to keep a good cook, you know, a cook that people like the food and so I honestly think they're on the right track. I think that, you know, it was kind of a hard decision for them to make. But when I think $10,000 more a year from us makes a difference of $2.50, where we might be able to get somebody who would stay more than a couple of months. Because it's so chaotic when there's not a cook there. Because people are counting on those meals. And so what happens then is that whatever leftover food has been, has existed from previous meals is frozen in like little microwavable things. I don't think they're really microwavable, but. And so they serve these meals, that's what we deliver. And, I mean, sometimes it seems like it's, 2 months well, every 2 months they're changing cooks. I didn't realize they didn't have an assistant cook. I think they've had an assistant cook because they had a volunteer who was a sister. I think that's how I just assumed that she was paid. $12.50 for a cook is still not very much money. I'm guessing that the cooks who work for the school, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm guessing that they get more money than that. So. I know it sounds like a lot, $10,000 more, but I think that the benefit to the people who depend on this would be worth it, honestly.
If we were to increase our funding, maybe not by the full 10, would that help leverage their request with the county to go back to increasing their discretionary payment to make up? I mean, if they had been giving 4, we gave 5, if they gave 4 again, that would get them closer to that 20.
Yeah.
It's at this point, we're maintaining funding levels as where we had last year, so that I think to try to communicate that ultimately, not a test necessarily, but see what they do with it, and that we're not making it this their annual ask. If they do well with it, then it might be able to be considered. I do think it's a pretty vulnerable population. I think that we've done a lot when former city manager Yuri changed the recreation to the wellness and recreation. There was a significant emphasis on the wellness of our overall community. And I think that the senior centers are definitely a portion of that, improving the overall wellness of our community. I'm not opposed to increasing funding to some degree.
The county hasn't paid $4,000 this year. They've got $4,000 allocated that they have not paid, correct? That's our understanding.
And if the senior center shut down and they don't have a cook and they don't have a kitchen, I can understand being on a board where I would withhold that money. But seeing that that's not the case anymore, my hope would be that there is now an active presence that would warrant additional funding.
And that may take a good conversation with the county commissioners, with the senior center staff. I know a lot of times we don't just send stuff over, we're needing an invoice to pay from, because that's what our business practice means. And so with the staff turnover that the senior centers have, they may not be aware of that either. So there probably needs to be a conversation there too.
Can we look to quarterly, just think, I don't feel like we're 100% stable here yet. Can we look to quarterly payments of the clinics? I usually buy or 2 a year, but can we do that instead?
Which would maybe help them budget.
Oh, yeah.
Better.
Yeah.
So for the annual budget, what would you want to budget then? I mean, it'd still be dispersed quarterly, but we need to budget for it all.
No, I'm aware. I mean, I'm still at 10. I understand that maybe that's not where everyone else is, which is fine, but I just am saying for payment purposes, since we're a bit unstable. Might look at that.
Before they were only getting $1 per meal.
Yes, that's what they
And
have.
now, now they get all of the money from the meal to put back into it too. And if their population and the people they serve continues to grow, so will that number to kind of offset some of that as well.
I guess that's kind of where I would wonder if this is not not seed money, but in essence, something to help them get up and going, get somebody hired. And then it's hopefully the business model is demonstrates itself to be sustainable, that we might be able to go back to $10,000 a year because the meals are supporting the wages that they're paying.
But they will not look at that like that.
Mhm.
They look at it as a cut, so. Typically, if we raise, we never go backwards. If we look at our histories, so. I don't, unless that's very clearly stated to them, this is a 1-year bump to get you going. And perhaps it's communicated that way, and intent is to go back. But I mean,
Even then,
yeah, it's a
they'll
cut,
feel like it's
Yeah.
a cut.
so I just don't wanna put a false.
Sure, I think communication would be really important with that, even if we only honor the historical request of $10,000 and have a very separate. I mean, if we have to write 2 checks. Can't always control how a message is received, but I think we can be very purposeful in how we deliver that message. That the hope with this additional funding is to help get things moving for you again. Knowing that you're starting on your own, the intent for the commission is to consider our traditional funding moving forward. Yes, they may feel it as a cut, and I respect and appreciate that.
I really like the idea of having a little bit more, I mean, they're so new to this change, to kind of watch the process these next couple months and see how it's going. As 2025 doesn't start till January. Do we have to allocate that now? Can we revisit it in December? Can we just agree on 10 now and revisit it in December? And make it an increase at that time if we feel that. If you can't pull it.
Yeah, I think that's,
I mean, is
That's a good
there an
approach.
alternative way to budget it? And then not, I mean, you could not use it, right? You can budget for something and not use it.
So we could budget for whatever amount you wanted to, and then if you tell us that we want to commit this much of the payment right now, and then we would consider at a later date doing the remainder, depending on how things go, we can communicate that to them as well.
So,
But for this purposes, we gotta make sure that we get it into the form, because this payment does come from the general fund, and that's what we need to make the decisions on now.
so what's one meal gonna bring in next year?
For 2025, what it can be, I'm not sure of that. Did Sheila happen to share that with you guys?
But they
or all our mills the same.
have they talked
I mean-
about going up?
One mill is the same.
No, they're at least
Yeah,
more than 130 days.
but looking at more next year,
County valuation versus city valuation.
I would say more than likely, it has it for 3 years. Yeah, at least.
So they will have a little more probably.
Yeah, if it goes up
From
another
the mill.
6,000, like it looks like each year. Maybe,
I believe it.
can't count on it, but.
No,
Historically speaking, other governmental bodies have also continued to increase their. I don't anticipate that to change. I would suggest we budget for 15. And if we don't end up spending the 10 because the meal program is going well enough on its own. It seems that it's moving in the right direction, but maybe it's support, then we pull the additional 5. If they're doing well on their own and they don't need that, which might be a tricky conversation, but then we can allocate that elsewhere. But for the budgeting purposes, I think it'd be good to have it. I think it's worthwhile.
So would that come from our reserve?
just that number, but. And so. Yes, the overall reserve, but as far as how it looks in the budget, if we increase it, in the state budget. On page 7A. It's 271,478. That number would be what would fluctuate by any increase.
I'll just go down. We usually have that number in 300,000 just for perspective. I mean, it'll be fine there, but and I usually send the letters out in November, just telling them that what to expect for the next year, and usually we do pay it, or in the past, we've always paid it the first appropriation of the next year in total, which we don't have to do, so whatever direction is fine.
So we have it until November.
I mean, that's just usually, I usually send a letter saying this is what we planned
Appropriate.
for you to expect, so.
So what's our consensus? Because we really need to know what to put in the budget for now, and then how you want us to proceed in November. You want us to bring these entity requests back to you in November to discuss formal allocation?
I see the value in the program and, I mean, just wages being a challenge everywhere. And I mean, I'm not inclined, I agree with Ashley to go, it's definitely the $20,000 because it's hard to go back from that. I had proposed a slight increase the other day, but I mean, that's not much. I mean, if you're considering that just going towards one person's wage for the year, that's helpful, but, this is suggesting to share across three individual employees, so even $10,000 really doesn't go that far, but.
I think it's just for the cook, from how I read it.
It'll go for the cook, the assistant cook, the dishwasher, and the office
Oh, okay.
manager.
So it'll go for 4.
That $10,000 divided, $2.60 per hour additional funding is divided by 3 positions. So that would, I mean, that could potentially be $1.60. I mean, just based on our funding, not, the county, not any increase from the additional mill or additional donations. And that doesn't include if they're funding from having more and more people come in, to kind of keep them afloat essentially that way by collecting money for meals. We don't know what that looks like yet, so it is hard to make a decision. Especially something that you're planning to maintain year after year. Yeah, you can just go up and down.
Then I think that's where I would think that if they're doing well with it, then we may not need to allocate the additional 5 or the 10, but help support their effort. If they seem to be struggling in that effort, but trends are moving in a positive direction, then that may be some beneficial support to keep them moving in a better direction to help it become more sustainable. And honestly, if we look at those numbers in November and things have struggled, they're not performing or doing what they can or they should, then we also have the opportunity to not allocate those that additional money, whatever it may be, for those reasons either. So if they're doing well, then they don't need it. If they're not doing well, then it doesn't necessarily matter so much. But if they're just on that edge where they could use some additional support, we might be able to help provide that to keep their sales full. So again, I would suggest budgeting for $15,000, agreeing to the $10,000 request, revisiting, spending the 5,000 additional that would be budgeted in October, November, reviewing the trends to make that decision at that point.
Next October, November, like in a year, like 25.
No, like in a few months,
Oh,
where they've had essentially 6 months
Okay.
or 5-6 months to their kitchen
Before
staff.
she sends letter of details.
Yeah, the kitchen will have been staffed sufficiently. They should have a window of time to get regulars to establish some degree of consistency that would indicate that they're moving in the right direction, in which we wouldn't need to do it. They're moving in the right direction, they could use some support, or they're not moving in the right direction. It's not gonna be fruitful for us to spend $5,000. We would be able to look at that with a bit more data in October, but the number would be budgeted.
Let's say the first meeting of November.
Seems like it'd be easier to allocate that elsewhere than to pull it in from somewhere else. From a budgeting perspective, is that accurate?
Say that again.
That it's easier for us to spend that money elsewhere than it will be to find it from somewhere else to put it in.
Yes. Either way, it's basically place, so it'll be fine.
I don't know why we have this conversation. Budget people that seem to be a little more detail oriented. It's all the same pot and it's all gonna go to the same place, but there are people who are much more detail oriented and I respect and appreciate that. But to fulfill the budgetary requirement, do we want to find it somewhere else if they
I
need
think
it?
that the $5,000 is a great place to start, honestly.
Recognizing that it is not part of the annual funding request,
Right.
but something that could be utilized to help them move in the right direction. Which would need to be worded very carefully because the communication is very important.
Yeah. Got it. But we are, so what I'm hearing is 15,000 to revisit at the first meeting of November.
Yeah.
To ask them to give us more information before then.
Yeah,
We're
these
gonna need
numbers
the
are-
data, we're gonna need the same monthly data numbers and revenue numbers to see if they're, how they're doing.
Because when did they change the pricing of the meals?
When they started up.
Yeah, so May 15th, so we're talking about 2 months ago.
Right, we'd have at least 6 months of data
Right.
at that first November meeting to see where numbers are going. What the profits, I can't mention those, but what profit might be realized at that point.
Barely. That won't be 6 months, but yeah, I understand your thinking.
Enough to have some data, at least.
Yeah.
See how it's going, maybe.
Especially if they know we
maybe either.
expect it, yeah.
5 months.
Oh, great.
I had an opportunity to read through the agreement. I'd forgotten that it was really as recent as it was. It's fairly clear. Section 5, I think, was where we very specifically.
We have to hold, if we're holding off on adding additional FTEs due to just being budget constraints, I feel like this would, because essentially it's going to pay for salary, and I understand that's it's tough, but we're in that same situation and we're choosing some discretion to pull back on that. So I don't feel like this is the right move at this time.
I think that's the struggle that I have. I don't really barring one, I don't know that there's really any request that doesn't deserve it or doesn't merit it.
Right.
And so I think that's the challenge. It's not that it's not a deserving. But we are with that hiring staff for the very same reason.
We have that agreement in place where we pay those items that I know we didn't go line by line through the CIP, but as just to point out, there also is $50,000 in there this year for ground grand windows and, 60,000 in there next year for the boiler. So
We spend 100,000 a year. I mean, we are very much fulfilling our obligation to the contract.
Right. I agree. The only way really reading this contract. Section 7 would give us. I think it was 7.
Yeah, we have the opportunity. I think they'll take whatever money,
Yeah.
additional money we
Yeah,
want to give
But
them.
I agree.
They wouldn't turn it down.
You're right, but I think now.
before we move on city utility fund, this is kind of when I say that we want to exceed the R&R, I have to have a public hearing date. So is first meeting, it'll be a regular meeting, first meeting in September is what I had planned on. She said she prefers it in September, Sheila at the county, so. First meeting in September, okay to put for that? Then let's get to that. Now.
I look at my schedule real quick.
I will be gone.
I'll have to Zoom that meeting.
Okay, I can possibly.
No, they required, Justin, they said they required a roll call vote, but if they're on Zoom, there's no problem with that,
No.
right?
No, you can do it electronically, that's fine.
Yeah, and if they all couldn't happen to be here, is that still okay too? If it's four,
What's that?
or are you all able to Zoom? I said if they're all, not all here, is that okay?
Yeah, as long as they're able to.
For fourth, right?
I haven't been told by my event planner that I have anything.
Today is the fourth.
Well, it's a regular city meeting.
I will be here. Leave the next day.
Then we can move on to the utility fund. On that tab, the green paper I gave you is the most up-to-date. Outlook, it just goes forward 4 years. And I had a highlighted number in there of 179,000 for a backhoe, just to highlight basically that we can't purchase something like that right now. We can't do a project of that size right now. Because as you can see in that same column at the bottom, it would make our reserve be budgeted at the end of next year to be 384,000, which is far too low. And if you go back in your notebook to the one I put a green sticky note on, so backwards towards front. There's green sticky note on that.
Page 12.
Yes, of the state budget form. That's the water and sewer utility in the state budget form as it is now. And so without that in there, it's 563,696. It's like similar to the guaranteed reserve of the general fund. That's the water funds reserve at the end of 25. It will be higher than that, just like the general fund. We're not gonna use everything that's budgeted, but that's the lowest that's been in a long time. And we have held off on projects, back to the green sheet, you can see that the last real project we did was not even, I mean, it was a repair of all of 118,000 in 2019, and then we helped put a portion in for the water line for Runza in 2023, and other than that, we have not done water projects for the last 5 years.
Have we been reimbursed by the Runza?
Barely, and we have about I think we have $5,000 left.
Okay.
I send them a bill every month. Every few months he'll send something, so
That's great.
yes, I'm very pleased that we are almost done. But that is separate from that, because that'll. So, that's just showing the situation that we're in, projecting it forward. If we didn't even do projects, you can see the bottom line is negative after another year. Then there's the detailed sheets, same as I do for the general fund after that, which is just what's all within that first page. Sure, you read the memo about the water rate increase. So after the memo, the first fold out page is, we just put together a comparison of cities somewhat similar in size or else around us. We'll just sorted by population order, so that's the point of that, but you can see the top row there is Concordia. And I picked 5,200 gallons because that's a pretty average second tier. User, not the minimum, but the next level. So that average water bill would be $31.28. And so that's our current, and if you compare that to everything below the black line, if you wanted to, I mean, it is very hard, as you know, to compare apples to apples. I tried to make notes of things that were slightly different. All the way to the right, if they had electric or gas or trash, I mean, all that kind of factors into how people set their water rates. If you have more to pull from, you can make them lower, I mean. It's all over the board, and then I did the same thing for sewer, that's the right one. Ours at the top compared to everyone else, and our sewer is even lower comparatively with the water, so. We are suggesting an increase, and if you look at the next fold out page, that's the water fund. Only, the water rate, sorry, only. And we were suggesting, and this is completely up for discussion, $2 to the minimum the first year, 43 cents to the next level, and then holding that, so we would no longer have a declining rate structure, which I think in every, there might have been one. I don't think there was, and every other city I compared to that didn't exist, it's very unusual. It's not a water conservation positive, so our suggestion would be to get rid of that finally and just hold that dollar. Though in that column of the current plus the two, I don't know how to call it, but the first one that has the change, you can see the average water bill per user. And so if you compare, you can compare by the water usage on the left side to see kind of how an average individual's water bill would increase.
Are we back to the town comparison page, or which page are we on for
On the same page, the water
that?
page.
Same page.
And that would get, if you did that, those two things, the estimate would be $142,584 in that first year. And then the second year, we were suggesting another dollar and then 25 cents on that next year. And that would be an additional $63,495 that year. And then same for the next year of if you increase another dollar and another 25 cents. So that was our suggestion for the water, and it's very similar for the sewer, which is the next page if you pulled out. We already do not have the declining rate for the sewer. So it's just changing the rate for each level. Wording wrong on the first one, sorry, it's not a dollar, it's $2.14 for that first increase, and then 43 cents similar to the water. Just like to get an even dollar amount, and then a dollar after that and a dollar after that. So we're suggesting basically the same for both water and sewer, similar increases. And then, as you can see, it's similar expected earnings. And then after that, we're still building on that, there is examples of water bills. So Megan went and found somebody that had, so the first person is a minimum user. They're just gonna use the base. 1,060 is the usage. Their water bill is or I guess just the water is $17 currently. So that's just showing that it goes the next bill to $19 and the next bill to $20. And then the first tier user, after that, we picked one that had 5,200. So that's where that number came from in the first chart where I was comparing populations. This is the full out water bill if you, from that first chart, 5,200 gallons. $34.88 is the current water bill. It would go to $36.80. $31.28 is current. Then it goes $34.88 and $36.80. But, and then you can, this just shows you all the other items that are within it. So you can kind of see the bottom line, how much it's increasing. And then same with the sewer on each of those. And then the last set is somebody in the fourth level, so not the top, but the second from top. Because that's where we have approximately 19 users, which are businesses. And that kind of shows current for the next 2 years, what we're suggesting, what kind of change it would have to their goal. So. That was a lot of information. What? I mean,
Are our higher users like hotels? Things like that, yeah. Hospital. That was always not really.
So the new car wash. will be used.
The biggest tap in town, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a 4-inch tap. I mean, that's our biggest, we have several 4-inch taps, but yeah, they'll be using some water. But it's something like that, it mainly foam and scrubbers and then a rinse at the end. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell how much water
Yeah.
they'll use.
Well, they're gonna recycle a decent amount of it, aren't they?
They have 25,000 gallons or 35,000 gallons of reclaimed tanks underground that they recycle it back through.
It's something there and they gotta know in their business plan, hey, I'm putting in a car wash, I'm gonna use a lot of water. So,
Right.
You know,
Well, that'll be good for the city.
yeah.
also be nice to maybe do it before they start using it. So it's not like, here was my bill, here is my bill. It's just how you bill always was.
Oh, I looked somewhere I saw where when we raised it, it's been a while.
Yeah, 2017 was the last year raised, end of 2016.
I don't know whether you were mayor or I was mayor, but
And we did a minimum hike in there at some
Yeah.
point. If it was after that or,
That's what it was there.
okay,
But remember,
in
we heard a lot about it.
14, you know,
This
that
is-
was it a
It was
$5
a $5 raise.
all at once?
right.
Yeah, and then another $5 raise in 2 years, I feel.
And then we added the wastewater treatment plant money.
My recollection of that was more of the concern, wasn't it? I think always.
Yeah, it was to fund that whole project.
Right.
The treatment plant, and that's a separate one on there, that's the one that went up so much, we just did, I think, $1 each minimum last time.
Now, the $5 were for the treatment plant.
Yeah.
And those,
And at that
as a
time, we
reminder,
had
don't go towards any operation, it's just
the
get that built and to pay it off.
Right.
At that time on the water bill also, there was
The swimming
pool,
pool.
toys,
Pool.
and
Yeah.
And that's
That
been,
has come off.
that's been retired.
But then we added,
We added something else.
we
so-
added the.
There was a clear removal before the addition.
That is no longer all about making money on the addition of pay.
Because, yeah, there is that, like, once it's on there, it's never coming off. Well, there's something else to put back on, it's different.
like she said, I just don't have money to do projects that I need to do. Just to replace one block of water main with some services is probably around $300,000, just one block, so.
So nobody's gonna like this until it's the main in front of their house or the main of their business.
I say I've been pretty lean for a while,
Yeah.
trying to build it up, but everything else is up, so. Not really making sense.
It's helpful to see the comparison with other cities. I mean, kind of in the ballpark. I mean, we would still be in the ballpark, it looks like.
We would just be entering it,
Yeah.
entering the part that exists,
It
trying to get there.
really kind of blows my mind that Colby is as low as they are, considering,
That's their water situation.
yeah.
So the tier increases. Is that just to make it gentler?
I wanted to go.
To get
I want-
away, you mean to eliminate the tiers or
No,
to
the
increase it?
per year.
The
a little
17,
bit per
19,
year, yeah,
2021.
just basically
Oh.
to minimize the shock a little bit, I think,
Instead of doing,
all
you're
at
saying
once.
instead of doing like $4 right now.
Hold off for the next 5 years.
But before, when there was an increase, it was just a rate and like a minimum rate.
Flat
increase.
rate.
We
Flat
did it,
rates,
we did it on both, but we still kept the declining rate structure, but we did do a little bit of an increase, so, didn't we? To every level.
Yeah, it was very little.
Yeah, they all went up, the last time they went up 20 cents, about 22 cents a level. But then we still kept the declining. The last time we increased it, but we increased the minimum by $1 and then each level underneath by like 20 cents.
I'm in favor of that getting rid of the declining seems like just a move we all need to be making right now, for sure. And it allows people to make choices about how they handle usage. Kind of like a sales tax, you make a choice, if you're gonna water that lawn. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Even at the lowest level, they're gonna notice it. I mean, it's a 10% increase at least. And
Well, those ones that don't, so there's about 630 users is all that they would have just see that $1. Well, $2 per share. So $4 per share.
I guess the conversation then becomes, what do you cut? Or more do you cut?
yeah,
There's nothing to cut.
yeah,
More than
exactly, yeah.
You're cutting $89,000 in capital outlay, is that much? 89, that's treated as capital outlay, so it's on here.
Oh,
They're 83.5.
and that's basically in there for the main or the repairing wells and
Yeah.
the unforeseen things.
Non-negotiable, I guess is what I'm saying, it's
Right.
not, again, kind of like mill, we've gone lean and mean, we've done the things we need to do to hold the line. If we do any more, people are gonna really start seeing services cut, and quality of life going away. I've read about a place closing their pool down in a city in Kansas doing that, and taking other measures and, you know, this is a reset from 2017. Again, how much have costs increased since 2017? That, you know, your milk's gone, everything's gone up, this is gonna, water goes up.
The production of water is, the production just to run the wastewater treatment plant is up.
Chemicals are just
Yeah.
insane.
I think that one of the, I don't have any, other than not wanting to pay it.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if we need to be more aggressive in it. I mean, I still think that this is pretty reasonable, all things considered, trying to space it out.
Yeah.
I think one of the challenges, I don't know that people are gonna be, our citizenry are gonna be extra thankful that we haven't done this over the last few years. They're just gonna be upset that we're doing it now.
That's what will happen, yeah.
But, so I don't know that a reminder that we maintain our mill levy. We've done everything we possibly can to reduce the negative impact. We have to do this. I think the conversation's not gonna go well,
Either way, it won't happen.
but it's really not gonna go well when we say we can't fix this main because we don't have the equipment or we're gonna have to contract it out or.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, our maintenance is great. We have great maintenance. I mean, have a leak, we go fix it. We had one Saturday night, 10 o'clock to 2:30 in the morning, and then 2 days later, we had one 4 houses down on the same block, same main.
I certainly didn't mean that your maintenance staff doesn't keep up, because I think that I'm so thankful and again, what, last December, January, when it was so warm, the maintenance is there, but we have to fund it adequately in order to make sure that it
Right.
continues to be that way. If we want that, and I think that we come to expect it, and hopefully those people appreciate it, but if we want to continue it to be that way, then we need to fund it appropriately.
Right.
Adequately, right? This isn't,
So if we go this way, you would, for the next 3 years, then we're set.
Till
So we're
come
not.
here again.
One of the things we did propose was that since we hadn't looked at this since 2017, and that was a big chunk at one time, we proposed staff saying in 3 years, we're gonna come back and evaluate and show you how it's working. And see, do we need to continue to do a gentle increase or are we good to go for a while? We need to not wait 8 or 10 years before looking at it again.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like Chuck, I don't have a problem with it to be set. And rebuild. I had a
we're so
sprinkler
spoiled.
that wouldn't shut off yesterday, Monday, the whole, my front yard. And I shut the system off, but it still wouldn't shut off. It ran about 13 hours.
Oh, no.
You're gonna bump yourself up a level.
Yeah, my front yard looks great.
Well, that doesn't, wouldn't go into effect until January.
It wasn't running down the street.
We'll put, it's like you're a
We'll
city
put you on
champion.
a shut off list too.
Well, we fill a hole in the ground, and when I tell friends who also fill holes in the ground in other places, they cannot believe how cheap it is to do it in
Yeah.
Concordia. So, I mean, I know that we're behind,
Yes.
I know we're behind.
When people want to move trailers, I tell them, it's like, our water bill's not that high.
But it still isn't, but it's still, we are still low if you look at the comparison.
I'd like to publicly say I do not want to increase water bills. But I also do want water.
Yeah.
Right.
Clean and
Exactly.
healthy and safe. And it's not an enjoyable decision to make.
We would probably do this, so I guess we would pass this at the end of December to begin in January. For a lot of time, or for that building cycle.
I would want to pass it sooner, just to give people time to
prepare.
to budget, those that budget on an annual basis. Me, but there are those who do.
You mean to then not implement it? until-
Not implemented until January, but that we pass the resolution sooner.
Put information out about it so people know when it's taking them.
So we
Okay,
can
so
get yelled at twice when we
Can you
approve
provide,
it and then when we implement it.
can you provide estimates to people if they call in, like on their personal bill? Or is that just,
you can, I mean, that's what we did, that's what she did, she was, because we have a test system now in this new system, so she just went and pulled up the person that had the right usage, and just went and put in whatever, so.
I mean, can you say that? I don't know that a million people would take you up on that, but can you say that, like, call us to learn how that's gonna affect, if you want numbers of how.
So you're gonna say I can only shower once a week now because Richmond is so high?
Come on, you know you weren't.
Yeah, everybody uses the same water.
Okay, it
Right.
Yeah,
actually
because
doesn't,
you
like,
want,
last
you want
time,
that.
we started it in September, well, we started it basically right away, and then each one after was January, was billings after December, so you're paying it in January. But the first one was offset, do we wanna do it like that? So exactly like this. Cause that's basically immediate, we're not, well, I guess this. I don't care. But so that she can get it, and I mean, it wouldn't start anyways, billing it, putting it into the system and.
Week of
September? For the November bill, or the October bill? Sometime. That's had read for utility billings issued after September 1st. Like that.
And then how does that, so we're talking about this during budget study session, this information is on the state budget form because you would take this information when it would go into effect and filter it through to put on the state budget form. So we'd have to wait until after the budget hearing and after you pass the budget to pass the ordinance with the water rates, right?
No,
Or as,
not
or as,
so it's funded its own.
as long as the effective date is after that, right? Or it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter.
It really was just a good time to talk about it, but we could do it.
Like a January dates.
Can I ask just to remind me, so if we, after the first year, that just brings us so that we're not negative, right? Is that, like, we're not going in the negative direction.
I'm in a negative direction, yes.
Right.
We would have been negative.
So that's after the first year, and then after the second year, we're a little bit, like,
Yeah, like we can.
is 2 years good enough? Do we need 3 years of increases?
Well, this is.
It is
three.
three.
That is,
It's 3 years.
I know, what, but does it have to be 3? Like, can we just stop at
Oh.
the 2 and not do a third year? That's what I'm saying. Like, would we be good without making that third increase?
I don't think so. Yeah, you wouldn't be, by that time, other increases are gonna happen with everything else.
You had to talk Jeremy down.
Yes,
To
Leave
the,
it now.
they did.
I had to ask the question. I'm trying to negotiate.
I mean,
It's a fair question.
just meters alone, replacing the meters alone right now is super expensive because they're going. We're losing 20 to 30 a month, I think, around there, and because they're 12 years old. And, but getting them is the other problem. And we don't want to change the whole system because we'd be bonding another $1.5 million to replace the whole town. So the system is doing its job, it's just getting them, and they're expensive. So we're spending, what was that, 60,
Oh, I thought we'd spent.
almost 100 this year.
$100,000 this year.
And the other thing that this, the increase on the sewer side is gonna help is paying for chemicals for our cake maker. We buy a lot of polymer and a lot of lime and sulfamic acid, and just to make that dirt is expensive.
Are we having luck giving it away?
No,
The pH is too high.
12.
It's too high for like yards.
Should have seen what it did to our yard out there. It was,
Well, maybe a little bit, but.
if you would mix it with some topsoil, would it be better?
Well, I don't know. The 12 is a little bit high when I guess it's supposed to be 7. The 12's
So if you like mix it together, then.
Yeah.
You're at 7.
But yeah, we have a mountain of it down there and
Can it be used as any type of biomass? Like even after it's caked?
Like fuel or?
Yeah,
I
like
don't-
fuel.
I don't think so.
I mean,
It is biomass.
I know it is. It like, but I mean, to use as some type of a fuel, like an energy source, yeah. Typically, people would burn it, I guess, like you burn it to make energy. Like, yeah, like burn waste or trash or corn or soybeans or whatever, yeah. No, you can't burn
I don't
dirt,
think
though.
so.
That's why when you burn a field, only
Only the dirt's left.
the dirt's. Wonder, I guess, yeah, it'd be nice to find a use for it that is productive, and, you know, that people would pay for it.
So
Yeah,
is it-
people are coming to get it for, some people do come and get it once in a while. They'll come and get a dump load of it, but not enough to. What we've been doing with it is taking it down to the shop and mixing it in with our dirt pile. But it seems to be expensive dirt. But it's doing what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
And not having problems with excess sludge. And not having a place to go with it, but now we just have a pile.
Sure.
The fields where it was going, how did they perform after that dirt was, or were those, cattle? Like, were
No,
they-
that was sludge.
Oh, it was sludge, okay.
Yeah. Nobody's come to get any of the dry stuff for fields yet. But the pH is pretty high.
Just need to get another additive or something else to reduce to lower the pH.
Well, this is the lime higher than the pH, right? That you need the lime to.
Yeah, we need the lime, we need it, we have to have it that high to, get rid of all the
Sure, okay.
pathogens. It's gotta get, it has to be that high to get to the temperature that it needs to be at for 3 hours or whatever it is to
So it'd have to be
kill
something.
everything.
It's still, yeah, the problem that we have with it is better than the problem we would have
Yes,
without it.
yes.
I don't want to raise rates. I don't want to charge people more. I don't want to do any of that. I don't know that we can afford not to do that. So I would be in favor of starting with January 1 and having this annual step increase play out over the next 3 years to be reviewed. Whether we wait 3 years, do we look at it in 2 years? I mean, I think a more regular follow-up will help us be able to make smaller adjustments if necessary. No, I don't.
I don't either. Continues to sign. Maybe we can go back to 3 years.
I would like to say this is very historic because I think ever since we've had water lines, we've had the scale. I mean, maybe not exactly, but we've had a decline in the scale ever since. So,
Well, the other thing that happens too is when you raise rates, sometimes if you raise rates, people use less. And you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. You're not getting the money you thought you were gonna get, and you're not producing as much water as you were before, so. I think this little of an increase is probably not gonna affect too many people, I don't think.
Or you fix that leaky toilet, or you know. there's-
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that people, I mean, we all need to be thinking about conservation a little bit too, in Kansas especially.
Until they get used to it. I mean, anytime we increase, when we increased playground from $0 to $25, we had very few attendees, and now they don't remember that it used to be free, so.
About the paying for the teams and stuff, that's just. Necessary. Clean, safe water.
And I'm, I think back to maybe a couple former commissioners who ran almost specifically because of the misbelief that the city was inefficient and to do a better job with the money that with taxpayer dollars. And it wasn't too long of them serving in that capacity before they became much more aware that I think city staff really do a pretty remarkable job of being about as efficient as we can and still have the services and the supports that we do.
We don't have an omnibus bill at the end where we spend our extra money. You know, we don't do that. We don't have that ability. It's.
So it will sting when there are increases, but I think we've all worked pretty diligently to avoid that wherever and however possible. It always stings, but the fact that it could sting more doesn't really help it sting less, but
In lieu of all the things that have been approved in the budget, though, I would say a lot of the pushback will come when the COLA and the water rate increase are announced potentially together, because then it appears maybe that we are increasing the water rates to increase wages.
But it should be noted that those are two completely separate funds.
people are gonna say.
And
we're
then
gonna-
it will, I mean, it will have to
Taxing,
maybe
yes.
be, I would suggest trying to make that very clear.
The utility
that it is-
fund does not pay any part of anything to do with the general fund. It only funds itself. It is its own business fund. They even call it that, and it can only pay, it only pays for its own stuff, which right now it cannot do much of.
I generally let folks know that we are always hiring at the city, and so if they would like to have a cush, well-paid city job, you know, we're taking applications. You wanna wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning to go hang out, degree temperature, yeah.
Whatever.
So I think our staff earn their company. There's always efficiencies we can find, and always more things we can do.
Do my best work.
So normally our next budget item would be the first meeting of August, but since we're doing the R&R hearing with the budget public hearing, they'll be together on September 4th. It's basically the same thing, it's just a different, slightly different form.
And I'll be here one way or the other. Yeah,
I'm always very excited.
Done?
is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Commissioner Wentz, second by Commissioner Hatch to adjourn this budget meeting. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. Meeting is adjourned.
I pray for lots of rain.